Hello, everybody. This is Joseph P. Farrell with news and views from the Nefarium on Thursday, April 22nd, 2021. Right out the bat, let me apologize for missing last week's news and views. I had something come up at the last minute and I had to take care of it. So, anyway, that's what's going on. We're back today. And I also have a bit of housekeeping news that I want to relay to everybody. Tomorrow's vid chat has been moved to Monday at the same time because we're getting predictions of some very nasty weather tomorrow and incidentally next week. So I don't know if I'm even going to be able to have the vid chat, but I'm at least going to try. So that's why I've moved it. I've already got questions and so on. And if I have to cancel it again, what I'm probably going to have to end up doing is simply recording the answers or my responses to the vid chat questions without an actual vid chat. It's one of those things I can't help, folks. We're in this very weird weather pattern this summer. We've had freezing weather the last week, the week before that, weather in the 80s. It's just that time of the year. And the only reason I'm doing this, folks, is when I'm on the vid chat, I can't hear the storm sirens if they should go off. So please bear that in mind. I'm just trying to keep everybody accommodated. Now, let me preface this very strange story. It was shared by BW, so thank you very much to the individual who shared this. This is one of those stories that is either true or baloney. I suspect it's true, but there may be some baloney in it. It's one of those stories that's kind of fell off the radar with everything going on in the world, but I have this suspicion that this is a significant story for reasons we'll get into. But I want to preface it because for those of you who've been following my work over the years, I have been arguing that there has been in existence since a couple years after World War II, if not a couple of years before World War II, that there has been in existence a worldwide hidden system of finance, number one, and that this system is based on obfuscated amounts of gold bullion in the world, and that this is after the war linked to the recovery of some of the Japanese gold that had been looted from China and other countries in Asia during the Japanese conquests during World War II, and that this gold was in turn recovered under great secrecy under orders by the Truman administration, who decided to use it as a source of funding for post-war covert operations. Now, in my estimation, the amounts of gold vastly exceeded the financing requirements for covert operations. So, in other words, what I've been arguing is that the amounts of recovered gold were the source of funding for a long-term black projects, secret research sort of thing. Now, the gold recovery itself, in my thinking, led to massive obfuscation of the actual amounts of gold, and number two, led to obfuscation in the form that you could use this as a secret reserve and then rehypothecate it over and over again and build up massive amounts of liquidity in the system. And that it's that liquidity that really made this secret financing mechanism possible. So I have been following in recent years these various stories of missing gold or countries trying to recover their gold. Let's remember who they were. Germany, for one, which according to most sources that I've looked at, has the world's second largest gold reserves after the United States. Well, a few years ago, you'll recall that Germany wanted to repatriate its gold from the Bank of France, from the Bank of England, and the New York Federal Reserve. And it had successfully repatriated much of the gold from the Federal Reserve. But if you followed the story of the Germans who were demanding this repatriation, the German Bundesbank was not exactly forthcoming on the assay purity of the gold that it had recovered. Other countries leapt in on that. You recall for a moment there was talk of the Netherlands repatriating its gold, Austria, Venezuela, and so on and so forth. So everybody got on the gold bandwagon and wanted to repatriate their gold, and that included the United States state of Texas, you'll recall, which also wanted to repatriate its gold from the New York Federal Reserve, and which has even opened a state bullion depository. So I want you to bear all of this in mind when you listen to this story. And again, I'm assuming it to be true for the sake of argument, but this story also has kind of the faint odor of perhaps a bit of smoke and mirrors, all right? The story is titled White Spiritual Boy Scam and Tokyo Sex Whale Documents Claim Theft of More than 100 trillion rand of gold. This story is out of South Africa, folks. And it was reported just yesterday by Philip de Vet for Business Insider South Africa, all right? So here we go. And I'm going to be reading most of this article because it's a very important article. In fact, I'm only going to be skipping about 3 paragraphs in this article because there's so many details here to latch onto. So here we go. Suspect documents widely circulated on Tuesday suggest, and that would have been 2 days ago, suggest that someone has misappropriated more than 110 trillion rand, the equivalent of more than 50 years of government spending. Note that number, 50 years of government spending in South Africa, most of it in gold. That literally unbelievable wealth seems to be at the heart of allegations made by magnate and one-time presidential hopeful Tokyo Sex Whale that money intended to fund free education and give handouts to the poor had been stolen. The documents, with references to the White Spiritual Boy Trust, that's the name of it, were posted to large WhatsApp groups and eventually on public forums, including the Advoberry Rue Twitter account, which has 1.3 million followers. Listen to this. The South Africa Reserve Bank and the National Treasury on Monday linked Sex Whale's claims to White Spiritual Boy Trust in a joint statement seeking to refute his claims on national television. So, there's a claim of missing gold from this person who at one time apparently was running to be the president of South Africa. It's linked to a trust, but the people doing the linking to the trust is the South African Reserve Bank, which means that already in the story, some very weighty people have weighed in, all right? And they're trying to refute the claim. Now, that already raises my suspicion because if there's that amount of missing gold, it directly would implicate the South African Reserve Bank. One letter lays claim to amounts that include $1.1 trillion. So for those of you tracking the missing money in the United States, this might be a related story. The equivalent of some 16 trillion rand. Supposedly on deposit with First National Bank. That is a sum 54 times larger than the market value of the bank's parent company. It is also roughly the value of every company listed on the joint stock exchange. In other words, the amounts of missing money here are astronomical, okay? And that's basically the story. But it's the amount of gold that we're talking about that's the really interesting part of this. Most of the wealth would be, listen carefully, would be in the form of 100,000 metric tons of gold, supposedly on deposit with the Reserve Bank since 1966. Now, folks, that's an interesting thing in and of itself, because this would put this gold in a time frame going all the way back to that very secret West German South African atom bomb cooperation, and so on and so forth. At current prices, that has a theoretical value of more than 80 trillion rand, but could be tough to sell without collapsing the world gold market, representing about half the gold ever mined, or just about the weight of all gold jewelry ever made. In other words, this story, if you follow the figures, is directly linked to the massive amounts of gold that we have been talking about in recent years, and specifically in connection with that secret American recovery of the Japanese gold looted during World War II. So, in other words, this is the thing that connects it in my mind to that whole context. Continuing and concluding here. How exactly such a gigantic stash of gold was accumulated is not clear, nor is it clear how trillions of dollars could have been deposited into banks that did not yet exist at the claimed time of deposits, or how the funds have been kept secret for more than 50 years. Who controls the supposed stash is slightly more clear, thanks to references to one Sam Samayon B. Murray, or San Salman bin Murray, who seemingly instructed that money be transferred to a vehicle with his initials, the SBM Private Equity Fund. SBM is a real company registered in 2018, but it was unable to immediately shed any light on the events to which Sexwell referred. So here we have it. Now, let me go back to that key paragraph here. Most of the wealth would be in the form of 100,000 metric tons of gold, supposedly on deposit with the Reserve Bank since 1966. And here comes a key phrase, though not necessarily in physical form. Okay, so in other words, part of this story is about not only missing physical gold, but it's also about certificates of gold on deposit. In other words, we're back, I think, with yet another connection to those very strange stories of bearer bonds that we saw about 10 years ago, gold-backed bearer bonds popping up in odd places and with astronomical amounts of money tied to them. We saw that, in Italy. Pardon me. And we saw it in Spain. So there's something going on here. We may have just been given another potential clue in all of this strange Mickey Mouse that we've been watching in recent years with massive amounts of gold. And this time it's going all the way down to South Africa. Where all of this is going to go, I don't know. But here's the thing. I suspect there's much more of a story here, if indeed any part of this is true. And anybody who knows anything about this, particularly if you have sources or friends in South Africa, I would like to know, because there's just something about this story that doesn't ring true. There's a lot of gold involved here. And as the article points out, it's a massive amount of gold involved, 100,000 metric tons. Now, I strongly suspect that the massive amounts are paper amounts. This is why I think this story is linked to everything else that we've been watching in gold, because the amounts of gold have been badly obfuscated. And on top of that, this secret reserve system that's using this gold is, in my opinion, rehypothecating it so much that we're looking at a lot of paper gold built up on actual stockpiles that don't really exist to the amount that the paper gold reflects. So something going on here. Yeah, the bonds return. Michael Woods in the chat room just said it's bonds. The bonds have returned. Yeah, 100,000 metric tons is about $5.8 trillion. So this is a massive amount of gold we're talking about. And according to this article, again, from Business Insider South Africa, this is a massive amount of gold. Now, we have to remember something else here. South Africa is, of course, center of some of the world's largest gold mines. So what's going on here, folks? I don't know. But my strong suspicion is we're looking at yet another little piece of the puzzle of this hidden system of finance and all of this badly obfuscated gold. So if you guys know anybody or have any more information about this story, this is something I think to watch, particularly since we seem to have a former politician in South Africa involved with this story to some degree, and we also have the South African Reserve Bank involved with it, trying to deny his allegations. So please watch this story. I'll link it when I get it put up. Don't forget that tomorrow the vid chat has been moved to Monday. Keep your fingers crossed that I'll be able to do it on Monday. I'm very wary of some bad severe weather that might happen tomorrow. Let's see. In the chat room, Space Ghost says Africa is the new low-cost labor force. Yeah, but that's my point. The amounts of gold involved here vastly exceed any funding needs that would be necessary for China and the Silk Road and so on and so forth. That's where I'm having some major suspicions about all of this stuff. So please, if any of you know anything more about this, let me know. Anyway, we seem to be having two conversations in the chat room, some about the gold and something about St. Paul. But anyway, I appreciate everybody being patient during my absence. Please keep your fingers crossed and prayers going that we don't get hit with a lot of severe weather. Don't forget, VidChat is on Monday, this coming Monday, not tomorrow. I've had to move it due to the threat of severe weather. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, everybody. This is an interesting story. I'm going to keep my eyes peeled, and hopefully some of you guys will keep your eyes peeled too. We'll see you on the flip side, everybody. Bye-bye, and God bless.